How's it going, guys? What I wanted to do in this video is take just a few minutes and I guess you could say rant. I know that if you've read the title of this video, you already know some of what it's going to be about. And so basically I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about good cops and bad cops. And the reason that I'm doing this is because it appears that the new villain has become, at least for the media, and many of those that just follow along with whatever the media says, it appears that the new criminal has become the police officer, I guess you could say. At least that's what the media wants you to believe. As I have said in other videos that I've done, there are good cops out there and there are some bad cops out there. We all know that. Just in every area. I think some areas are worse than others, but that is something that nobody can deny. There is a serious need for some reforms in law enforcement, and I think that we need to pressure our politicians to make those reforms. We heard a lot of talk a while back. Occasionally we still hear talk, but nothing ever gets done in typical political fashion. That's just the way that things are. But in this video, what I wanted to do is take a few minutes to actually defend the good cops. There are stories all the time in the news about incidents of police brutality that just repeated over and over. And if you look at the number of cases where police interact with the public, the ones that go perfectly fine, the good calls of where there is a serious need for help from law enforcement, not necessarily criminally related. There's times I've seen cops that have changed someone's tire for them, just things like that. You never hear about those incidents. It's not what feeds the media fear-mongering. It's not what drives ratings for them. It's not what fills the coffers of some of these activist groups that make millions on dividing we the people. And so that's why they play it up. It's all about the money. You drive the media ratings up, the media makes more money, you get more money that flows to a lot of these activist groups, and it just compounds the problem. In the meantime, law enforcement, they get demonized, they get beat down, they get demoralized. And I'll be honest, some of them, I'm surprised that some of these places, some of these cities, that they haven't had more of them just walk off the job, which is what we're seeing in some cities. I think that we need to recognize a few facts about some of the people that the police have to interact with. A lot of times, it's just average everyday citizens that made a mistake, that, may have went through a stop sign, that may have been driving a little too fast down the road, things like that. But at the same time, those police are also the ones that go after people that do others harm. They're the ones that get in between those who can't protect themselves against those who would victimize them. Children, elderly, just people in general in a lot of cases. And, they're the ones that, of their own choice, take on that responsibility, at least the good ones. And they go out there, they protect citizens. We don't recognize the fact that there are people that these police officers have to deal with that are extremely dangerous, that have a history of violence in many cases, that have done pretty serious harm to a lot of folks. And whenever something gets to the point to where the police are called and things don't go well during one of these interactions with one of these folks, that's what makes the news, unfortunately. And it is a shame. It is a shame that there is such a quick judgment of wanting to blame the police every time a situation goes bad. And if you watch the whole story, if you look at some of these cases, you will easily see that the police were just trying to do their job. Now, admittedly, as I have said in other videos, a police officer should never do anything that violates the Constitution under any circumstances. That's where I stand. I will not budge from my views on that. But at the same time, they do have a job to do. They have a job to protect the public by getting violent criminals off the streets. And for the most part, a lot of them do that job very well to their own risk. And we've seen some cases in the news. If you watch the body camera footage, things like that, you will see that some of these arrests are of people that have been fighting them pretty heavily. There was one that I seen just a few minutes ago before making this video that it showed about 3 officers trying to subdue one individual. That individual ultimately died, but again, it took 3 officers just to even subdue him. He was hyped up on drugs. They, of course, tased him. He was fighting them, and, you know, unfortunately, he passed away, and it was ruled by the medical examiner as basically as an overdose. There's other cases where the police go up against armed criminals. At the time I'm making this video, there was a story on just a bit ago about a 13-year-old in Chicago who was shot by law enforcement. It's a tragedy. The 13-year-old did have a firearm in one of the most heavily gun-controlled cities in the country. And he, or at least it was suspected, that there had been shots fired from that gun. In fact, there was video surveillance showing shots being fired in the vicinity of where that 13-year-old was. When the police were called, they got there, they chased him down. He turned around, he did have a gun in hand, he went to throw it away, and unfortunately, though, he still lost his life because the officer fired. There's a debate that could go back and forth between whether he should have fired that fast or not, but when you are in that split-second decision, you do not know what you're going to do unless you are in that position. It's a tragedy either way. The officer was emotionally distraught, as it showed in the video as well. But here is the ultimate question that I think that we really need to ask ourselves, and that a lot of this ties back in relation to that. This was a 13-year-old out running the streets of Chicago at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, I want to ask one simple question. Where was his parents? Okay? Very simple question. A lot of these other folks that are interacting with the police, where things go bad, a lot of times they're kids. A lot of times they're people that have records since they were kids. The same question can be asked of many of those cases also. Where were the parents? When you are a parent, you are not necessarily that child's best friend. You are the parent. You're to set those boundaries. You're to teach them responsibility. You are to teach them how to interact with others. You are to teach them the rules of respecting others. You are to teach them not to do harm to others. Those are the things that a parent is supposed to do. If a parent does not take that responsibility, then what we get is a generation of adults, or I'm not going to say adults, but of physically matured people that think that they can get away with anything, that they grew up getting away with doing whatever they wanted to do, and now that they're older, they still think that they can do whatever they want to do. And our judicial system is trying to teach some of these folks that no, you can't. You cannot go in and harm others. You cannot go in and steal from others. You cannot go in and beat somebody up for no reason. But because in many of these cases, parents did not teach their kids this stuff growing up, the justice system is having to do it. Okay? A lot of these cases that we see involving law enforcement are cases where individuals are fighting them. They're fighting law enforcement for just doing their job. If they have a warrant, they are responsible to serve that warrant. If you are stopped, if you have a warrant on you, they have a duty to take you in to satisfy that warrant. That's just the way that it is. That is their job. Right or wrong, they are not the judge. They are not the jury. They're not the ones that decide whether you are guilty or not. But they are the ones that are to bring you in before the court and let the court decide. That's their responsibility. When people fight them, they still have that responsibility. Yes, some of them get carried away in that responsibility. They go too far, they abuse their power, and those are the ones that do need to be held accountable, and they need to go to jail in some cases. There are other cases recently where that very thing has happened. But we cannot continue to demonize law enforcement the way that we are. We need reforms, as I said earlier. There must be reforms, serious reforms that make it much easier to hold bad cops accountable. At the same time, we need to recognize the fact that there's bad people out there, and that there are people in our society that can and should deal with them. Bad people have been around since the dawn of time. Ever since Cain killed his brother Abel, there's bad people. But the fact is, we cannot keep demonizing the ones that get in between the bad people and the good people. So yes, there is good cops and there's bad cops. We need to stand against the bad, do everything we can to hold them accountable and get them off the force. And we need to support the good cops that get in between the bad people and the good people. Okay? Guys, this is just a little bit of a rant video. I don't think that it can be emphasized enough that parents need to step up and do their job raising their kids. And that one thing alone would help to reduce some of this terrible, terrible situations that are happening in our society today. You know, there's just no excusing it. But guys, this is just a little bit of a rant video that I wanted to do. I would like to know what your thoughts are down below. Some people may like it. Some people may hate it. I don't know. That's up to you. That's your choice. It's my opinion. And I think if parents do a better job at raising their kids, we're probably going to have a whole lot less criminals out there. You know, that's just the way that things are. Guys, thanks for watching. Check out the rest of the videos on the channel. Share the videos. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.